Arsenal against Manchester United. Nick, I'm going to come straight to you. All the questions are around Arsenal, it feels like, in this one. Can they rebound from dropping those points against Fulham at home last time out? I guess United, talking about their balance, we'll talk about that later on. But right now, focusing on Arsenal, Mikel Arteta said it wasn't good enough against Fulham. But what wasn't good enough? Too slow, too predictable? It's kind of been a sluggish start, a stodgy start to the season for Arsenal, I think we said last week.
Look, I think that's right. And I think Arsenal isn't as good on the whole as what we saw for much of last season. That said, I think Mikel ought to get on the phone with Pep and have a discussion about sometimes the performance is more important. They were a lot better than Fulham, like a lot better than Fulham. And while I think there were reasons to be concerned at the initial performance against Nottingham Forest that could have been written off from betting in some new players to the side, they were significantly better than Palace. They were significantly better than Fulham. And they're just not finishing their chances. And I looked this up because I was tasked with the predictions this week. They're out shooting teams in open play 38-20. That's wow. Not bad. That is not a bad number for a team that, again, is still finding its balance with Rice, is still putting some guys in weird position. It's still the one question I have for Arteta is, what are you doing taking Odegaard out in like the 75th minute of every game? But besides that, I actually think there should be, you're right, that everything you're reading online is about, well, what's Arsenal going to do? What's Arsenal going to do? I feel like they're a lot more settled than Man United, who is kind of skating on what happened to them last weekend.
Yeah, talk about that. I mean, Nick, you covered the game for PST, right? I mean, United, they rescued it after going 2-0 down against Forest. After just 4 minutes, they rallied, but the balance still isn't there in midfield, is it?
The balance isn't there in midfield, and I think the Varane injury is going to be, whether it be just one game or 6 games, this game is a big ask for them. Now, I like Lindelof. I think he's underrated. Martinez is good as well. But there's a real question for me about, forget who's starring in the midfield. And they do have a question to answer there. We've been talking about Amrabat for 3 months. But I really do wonder. Saka has played well, but isn't finishing. Jesus looks like he's ready to be back, at least playing more than just a subs role or a stoppage time subs role. I honestly think at home, Erik ten Hag could be pretty frustrated by the end of this one.
Andy, you agree with that? And what's been your overall takeaway from Arsenal, Man United early in the season?
Yeah, I'm somewhere between what both of you have said about Arsenal. I get that the results haven't quite matched the performances yet, but I think that we all expected, and we do this with young teams, especially because we get so excited about young players coming through, is we say, oh, well, they're going to improve so much more next year. And so they're going to be even better as a team next year. And we kind of forget, or we think of progress for a team as, or even individuals developing as linear. Like you start from the same point that you left off last season and you just build from there. And with Arsenal, it felt a bit, and I didn't want to sound like a hater at the time because it absolutely would have sounded like it, but it felt a bit like maybe that was as good as it was going to be for Arsenal with this kind of group of players. And it was the exact same thing for Tottenham at one point as well, where they had kind of a fairy tale run, challenge for the title, fell apart late, finished second or I think third maybe even that year because that's what Spurs do. And then you just I expected the next season, well, they'll just kick on from there. And they absolutely didn't. And you have to remember that it doesn't quite work like that. And so this is still a very young team. And though they were good last year, though they had success last year, they're playing differently this season. They have 3 or 4 very important new players that have cost a combined 200, 300 million coming into the team. So there's going to be a lot of changes to the way that they play and players figuring things out. It's a transitional period for a team that is, you wouldn't think of as being in transition. You would think of Manchester United as being more in transition, but Arsenal have a lot of changes happening kind of constantly right now, and the injuries haven't helped them. So it's just been a mess of a start, I guess, for Arsenal, and they will improve from there. The results, I think, will eventually match the performances, but I still think, and just to kind of take this bigger picture, they're not close to Manchester City. I don't think anybody is close to Manchester City. So that's just kind of the context of where I'm seeing Arsenal right now.
Yeah, I'm interested in this game, the key battle, Bruno Fernandes, Declan Rice in midfield. I think Arsenal, like Nick mentioned, the attacking weapons they have in that attacking field area, they're going to overwhelm Man United. I think they're going to have a lot of chances, and it's just whether they actually take them in this game. But Rice against Fernandez, two kind of spiky characters, you say, real leaders for both of their teams. And yeah, I feel like over the years, Declan Rice at West Ham has got the better of Bruno on quite a few occasions when they've come up against Man United. So I'm excited to see that key battle in particular. But Saka, Martinelli, obviously Odegaard, in those attacking areas, I think they're going to give United so many problems. Based on all this, Nick, score prediction for this weekend, mate. What are you thinking?
I'm going with the home team. I think both teams will score, and it'll be in that 2-1 or a 3-1 that doesn't feel like it was a 2-goal win situation. I just have to think Andy's right, of course, about Saka especially, and some of these younger attackers. Like how much higher of a ceiling can you have from a player that we saw as good as he was last year? But the difference is some of those young guys in positions, your Saliba being 22. I mean, I think their entire back line is in their 20s. Those guys are going to just positional and awareness-wise get better. And I think they'll have enough to get this done. Also, will be interesting to see how far away we are from seeing a change in goalkeeper. But those are the things I'll be monitoring. I'm picking Arsenal. I'll go 2-1.
Andy?
Yeah, I like a lot of the points that Nick makes there especially about the back line for Arsenal, but it's also as important as those players are, and Saliba being the main one, Gabriel as well, as important as they are to the way that Arsenal want to play, similar to Liverpool with Van Dijk and Konate defending a lot of space running back towards their own goal. Those players are hurt a lot, and they're not available a lot, and they're certainly not there as often as you need them in the Premier League 38 times and the Champions League on top of it. So, yeah, Arsenal, a very interesting team the more that we kind of dig into them a little bit. But for the weekend, I'll say 3-2 to Arsenal. I think it's going to be wide open because Arsenal will press really high, obviously being at home, and Manchester United, I think, are going to try and match them. And I think they're in a weird spot where they're trying to prove themselves every time they take the field. And against a team that's got the quality of Arsenal and kind of some of the understanding of playing together, that can turn out kind of badly. And we've seen it go upside down for Manchester United the last couple seasons, especially early on.
I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw between these teams because I just think both are in tough spots after last weekend, and we'll just want to kind of shut up shop a little bit, especially Manchester United, given how end-to-end the away game at Tottenham was in particular. So I just think Arsenal are going to create a lot of chances, but it's going to be that same issue for them, maybe not putting them away. So I think this is a bit more defensive lineup we're going to see from Manchester United, and I think they'll grab a draw on the road at Arsenal. But let's see what happens. Two heavyweights clashing in North London. Arsenal against Man United. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for the how to watch info, team news, live analysis and reaction, video highlights and more. We'll have you covered. Always a massive game when these two teams clash, and especially at the start of the season, just to get a sense of where they're at and where they're going to be for the rest of the campaign.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.